The fall of a laser. Emperor Vashi stood at the panoramic viewing platform of the celestial citadel, their silver robes reflecting the ethereal light of a laser's twin moons. The planet below was their crowning achievement, a masterpiece of bioengineering that had taken centuries to perfect. Every ecosystem, every creature, every blade of grass had been meticulously designed to create a symphony of life that showcased the Valeran Empire's mastery over creation itself. But now, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Your Radiance, first Biomancer Keth approached, his crimson robes rustling against the obsidian floor. The readings from the southern continent, they're unprecedented. Vashi's otherworldly features remained impassive, but their inner eyes, organs evolved to perceive the very fabric of life itself, pulsed with concern. Show me. The holographic display materialized before them, showing real-time footage of a laser's surface. What had once been a tapestry of emerald forests and crystalline lakes was now being consumed by something that defied the very laws of nature. A writhing mass of darkness spread across the landscape like spilled ink, devouring everything in its path. What are we witnessing, Keth? Vashi's voice carried the weight of millennia, each word precisely measured. We're calling them Ravagers, Your Radiance. Keth's hands trembled as he manipulated the display, zooming in on one of the creatures. They appeared 3 standard cycles ago, emerging from what we believe to be a quantum fissure in the planet's core. Our initial attempts to contain them failed. The image showed a beast that seemed to be composed of living darkness itself. Its form was constantly shifting, but certain features remained constant: razor-sharp appendages that could slice through reinforced metals, a maw filled with impossible geometries of teeth, and most disturbing of all, an ability to consume and corrupt any form of life it encountered. Our bioweapons? Vashi questioned, though they already suspected the answer. Ineffective, Your Radiance. The Ravagers appear to be able to adapt to and consume any biological agent we deploy against them. Even our most aggressive viral strains are simply absorbed. Vashi watched as one of their research outposts, protected by barriers designed to withstand planetary bombardment, crumpled under the assault of these creatures. The screams of the researchers inside were mercifully cut short by the station's emergency protocols. The evacuation? Ongoing, but... Keth hesitated. The Ravagers are learning, evolving. They've begun targeting our transport ships. We've lost contact with 3 colonies in the past hour alone. Vashi turned away from the display, their inner eyes closing in deep thought. The Valeran Empire had faced countless challenges in its million-year history. They had survived stellar wars, contained quantum plagues, and even reshaped entire galaxies to their will. But this was different. Your Radiance, another voice joined them. High Administrator Cell, her platinum robes marking her as one of the Empire's most senior officials, approached with uncharacteristic urgency. We've completed the analysis of the Ravager's genetic structure, or what passes for it. Speak, Vashi commanded. They're not natural, Your Radiance. Not in any sense we understand. Their molecular structure appears to be in a constant state of quantum flux, allowing them to adapt to and consume any form of matter they encounter. But there's something else. She paused, her expression grave. We've detected traces of human genetic markers in their base structure. The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. Humans, the upstart species that had emerged from their backwater planet barely a millennium ago. The same species that the Valeran had initially dismissed as primitive, only to be repeatedly surprised by their resourcefulness and tenacity. Explain, Vashi demanded. The markers appear to be artificial, deliberately engineered into the Ravager's structure. We believe. Cell chose her next words carefully. We believe they were designed to be specifically resistant to Valeran bioengineering while being potentially vulnerable to human biological systems. Vashi turned back to the holographic display, watching as another section of a laser's surface disappeared into the growing darkness. The implications were clear, and they were devastating. The Valeran Empire, with all its power and knowledge, was facing an enemy they couldn't defeat alone. "Open a channel to Earth," Vashi commanded, their voice carrying a note that none present had ever heard before: humility. "We require assistance." The message was sent across the vast expanse of space, encoded in frequencies that the humans had only recently learned to detect. It was a request that would have been unthinkable just days ago, the mighty Valeran Empire asking for help from a species they had long considered inferior. But as Vashi watched their carefully crafted world being consumed by an impossible darkness, they understood that pride had no place in survival. The humans had proven themselves to be remarkably adaptable, their chaotic approach to problem-solving producing solutions that the more structured Valeran minds might never conceive, and as the first human vessels began responding to their call, Vashi felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries: hope. But even as help was on its way, the situation on Elazer was deteriorating rapidly. The Ravagers had begun to show signs of organization, their attacks becoming more coordinated, more strategic. They were no longer simply consuming, they were hunting. "Your Radiance," Keth's voice was barely a whisper. "We've lost contact with the northern continent. The quantum barriers, they've failed." Vashi watched as the darkness spread across their perfect world, knowing that every moment of delay meant more lives lost, more of their carefully crafted creation destroyed. The humans would come, but would they arrive in time? And even if they did, what price would the mighty Valeran Empire have to pay for their help? The human response. Captain Elias Vance stood on the bridge of the UNSS Starcutter, his weathered features illuminated by the holographic display of Elazer's deteriorating situation. Around him, Earth's finest minds were already at work, analyzing the Valeran data with an intensity that bordered on obsession. "It doesn't make sense," Dr. Sarah Chen muttered, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. As humanity's leading xenobiologist, she had been specifically requested by name in the Valeran transmission. "These creatures violate every known law of biology. Since when has that stopped us?" Elias replied, a ghost of a smile playing across his face. He had seen enough impossible things in his career to know that impossible was often just another word for, "we haven't figured it out yet." The Starcutter was leading a fleet of 17 ships, each carrying specialists from different fields. It was the largest joint human operation since the Mars Crisis, and the first time in history that the various Earth nations had united so quickly for a common cause. Captain, his AI officer, Arya, materialized beside him. Her holographic form flickered with unusual agitation. "I've completed my analysis of the Valeran data. There's something they're not telling us." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Oh. The genetic markers they mentioned? They're not just human, they're specifically engineered using techniques developed by the Prometheus Initiative." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The Prometheus Initiative had been humanity's most ambitious and controversial genetic research program, shut down 5 years ago after a series of catastrophic accidents. Its lead scientist, Dr. Marcus Kane, had disappeared shortly after, taking with him decades of research and a dangerous understanding of human genetic potential. "Are you saying these Ravagers are human-made?" Sarah asked, her face pale. "Not exactly," Arya responded. "But whoever created them had access to Prometheus research data. They specifically engineered these creatures to be resistant to Valeran biotech while remaining vulnerable to human biological systems." Elias cursed under his breath. "Someone's playing a very dangerous game. Get me a secure line to Earth Command. They need to know about this." But before the communication could be established, new alerts flooded the bridge. The Ravagers had breached Elazer's last major defensive line. The Valeran were evacuating their last research facilities, and with them, crucial data that might help understand and combat these creatures. "Time to arrival?" Elias demanded. 4 hours, 17 minutes at current speed, his navigation officer responded. "Not good enough. Arya, give me options." The AI's form flickered as she processed countless scenarios. We could use the experimental quantum drive. It would cut our arrival time to under an hour, but the risks are better than watching an entire planet die, Elias finished. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, prepare for quantum jump. Anyone who isn't confident in their drive systems, fall back now. No shame in it. Not a single ship dropped out of formation. The quantum jump was unlike anything they had experienced before. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist around them, and for a brief, terrifying moment, Elias could have sworn he saw something in the quantum void, something that reminded him too much of the creatures they were going to fight. When they emerged in a laser's orbit, the sight that greeted them was apocalyptic. The once beautiful planet was now partially covered in a writhing darkness that seemed to pulse with malevolent intelligence. Valeran ships darted through the atmosphere like silver fish, desperately evacuating their people while trying to maintain some semblance of order. "My God," Sarah whispered. "They're not just consuming the planet. They're transforming it." She was right. The areas consumed by the Ravagers were changing, the very geology of the planet being reshaped into something alien and wrong. Crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics burst from the ground, and the atmosphere itself was taking on a peculiar, shimming quality. "Captain," Arya's voice was urgent. "I'm detecting quantum signatures similar to the Ravagers, coming from beneath the planet's surface. Whatever created these creatures, I believe their point of origin is still active." Elias nodded grimly. "Send the data to the Valeran. Tell them we're going to need access to their quantum tunneling technology. If these things have a source, we're going to find it and shut it down." But as they began their descent into a laser's atmosphere, new complications arose. The Ravagers were evolving, adapting to their presence. Some had developed the ability to fly, launching themselves at the human ships with terrifying intelligence. "All ships, maintain formation," Elias ordered as the first wave of aerial Ravagers approached. "Activate the experimental shields. Let's see if our theory about their vulnerability to human tech holds true." The shields, based on principles entirely different from Valeran technology, flared to life. When the first Ravager struck them, it recoiled as if burned, its ever-shifting form momentarily destabilizing. "It works," Sarah breathed. "Captain, the shields are actually disrupting their quantum structure." But their victory was short-lived. Already, the creatures were beginning to adapt, probing the shields for weaknesses, coordinating their attacks with an intelligence that seemed impossible for something that had existed for such a short time. "They're learning," Arya warned. "At this rate of adaptation, we have perhaps hours before they figure out how to bypass our defenses." Elias watched as another section of a laser's surface disappeared into the growing darkness. They were running out of time, and he knew that conventional tactics wouldn't be enough. They needed to do something unexpected, something that even these rapidly evolving creatures couldn't adapt to. Something human. "Dr. Chen," he turned to Sarah. "How quickly can you weaponize human gut bacteria?" She stared at him for a moment before understanding dawned in her eyes. "You want to fight them with probiotics? These things were engineered to be vulnerable to human biology, right? So let's give them more humanity than they can handle." As Sarah rushed off to her lab, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. Why would someone create creatures specifically designed to devastate the Valeran while being vulnerable to humans? What was the real goal here? And more importantly, who was really pulling the strings? The underground truth. Deep beneath a laser's surface, in a network of quantum-stabilized tunnels that the Valeran had carved over centuries, Dr. Marcus Kane watched his creation unfold. The man who had once been Earth's most brilliant geneticist now barely resembled a human being. His body was a hybrid of organic and quantum technology, his mind expanded far beyond normal human limitations. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he spoke to the darkness around him, his voice resonating with multiple harmonics. The perfect fusion of human adaptability and quantum mechanics. The laboratory around him was a testament to years of careful planning. Valeran technology, stolen and modified, lined the walls. But at the center was something entirely new, a quantum forge of his own design, where reality itself could be reshaped and programmed like DNA. Dr. Kane. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a presence that even the Ravagers seemed to avoid. The humans have arrived earlier than anticipated. Kane smiled, his expression visible on multiple planes of existence simultaneously. Of course they have. Humanity's greatest strength has always been its unpredictability. That's why we need them. The presence shifted, uncomfortable with the concept of needing anyone or anything. It had existed in the quantum void between universes for eons, watching, waiting. Kane had been the first to not only detect it but to understand what it wanted. The Valeran Empire must fall, the presence stated. Their control over life itself threatens the natural order. But these humans are the key to everything, Kane finished. The Valerans seek to impose order on a quantum universe. Humans. We thrive on chaos. Our very biology is a testament to adaptability over perfection. Above them, through layers of rock and quantum-warped space, the battle continued to rage. Kane watched through the eyes of his Ravagers as the human fleet deployed their newest weapon, a biological agent based on human gut bacteria. It was exactly the kind of brilliantly insane solution he had expected from his former colleagues. They're using probiotics, he laughed, the sound echoing through multiple dimensions. Sarah Chen always did think outside the box. But even as the biological weapon began to take effect, slowing the Ravagers' advance, Kane was implementing the next phase of his plan. The quantum forge pulsed with new energy, and deep beneath the surface, something began to stir. Your creation is flawed, the presence warned. The humans are proving more resourceful than calculated. Not flawed, Kane corrected. Perfectly designed. Every adaptation, every seeming vulnerability, is leading to exactly where we need them to be. In the tunnels around them, reality began to twist and fold. The quantum forge was reaching critical mass, its energy beginning to reshape the very fabric of spacetime. Soon, the barrier between normal space and the quantum void would break down completely. And then, Kane whispered, everything changes. Above ground, the combined human and Valeran forces were starting to make progress. The probiotic weapon had proven surprisingly effective, causing the Ravagers to break down at a molecular level. But as they pressed their advantage, pushing deeper into infected territory, they were playing right into the quantum convergence. Emperor Vashi felt it first, a disturbance in the quantum field that made their inner eyes burn with otherworldly pain. The sensation was unlike anything they had experienced in their millennia of existence, a wrongness that transcended normal spacetime. Your Radiance, High Administrator Cell's voice cracked with unusual emotion, the readings from beneath the surface, they're impossible. The holographic displays around them showed a cascade of data that defied comprehension. Beneath the laser's surface, reality itself was beginning to unravel. The quantum forge, now identified as the source of both the Ravagers and the growing distortion, was creating a breach between dimensions. On the bridge of the Star Cutter, Arya's holographic form flickered violently as she processed the new data. Captain, we have a significant problem. The quantum signatures are becoming exponentially stronger. At this rate, they'll create a tear in spacetime large enough to swallow the entire planet. Captain Elias Vance watched as his crew worked frantically to understand what they were facing. Dr. Sarah Chen's probiotic weapon had been successful, perhaps too successful. The Ravagers weren't just dying, they were transforming, their quantum structure becoming increasingly unstable. It was a trap, Sarah realized, her face pale with horror. The Ravagers weren't the real threat. They were just the catalyst for something much worse. Explain, Elias demanded, even as new alarms blared across the bridge. The Ravagers' quantum structure, it's not breaking down, it's achieving resonance with something deep underground. Every one we destroy is releasing quantum energy in a very specific pattern. She pulled up a complex diagram. They're like keys, unlocking something that was hidden beneath the surface all along. The ship shuddered as another wave of quantum energy washed over them. Through the view screen, they watched as reality itself began to ripple and distort around a laser. The planet's surface was becoming a maze of impossible geometries, spaces that folded in on themselves in ways that hurt to look at. "Captain," Arya's voice was urgent, "I've detected a familiar quantum signature. It matches records from the Prometheus Initiative. Specifically, Dr. Marcus Kane's final experiment." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Kane's last experiment had attempted to breach the barrier between normal space and what he called the quantum substrate, the underlying layer of reality where the laws of physics as they knew them broke down completely. "He's here," Sarah whispered. "All this time, he's been here, underground, using Valeran technology to perfect what he started on Earth." In the celestial citadel, Vashi was reaching the same conclusion. The Valerans' sophisticated quantum sensors had finally penetrated the interference surrounding the underground complex. What they found there defied even their advanced understanding of reality. "The human scientist has created a quantum forge," Cell reported, her voice trembling. "But it's unlike anything we've ever encountered. He's somehow merged our biotechnology with quantum mechanics in ways that should be impossible." "Not impossible," Vashi corrected, their inner eyes pulsing with new understanding. "Simply beyond our understanding. The humans, their chaos, their unpredictability, it allows them to see patterns we miss, to make connections we would never consider." The ground beneath them shuddered as another quantum wave pulsed outward from the forge. In orbit, ships from both fleets struggled to maintain position as space itself began to warp and twist. "Your Radiance," a young Valeran officer called out, "we're detecting a new signal from the forge. It's trying to communicate." The message that came through was distorted, overlaid with quantum harmonics that made it seem to exist in multiple states simultaneously. But the voice was unmistakably Kane's, though changed by whatever he had become. "You thought you were saving a planet," his voice resonated through both human and Valeran communication systems. "But you were actually helping to birth a new reality. The Valeran seek to control life. Humanity embraces chaos. But there's something greater than both, a force that exists in the quantum void between universes. And it's finally ready to emerge." On the Starcutter's bridge, Elias watched as new data poured in. The quantum forge wasn't just creating a breach, it was establishing a permanent connection between normal space and whatever existed beyond it. Each ravager they destroyed added its energy to the process, strengthening the connection. "We need to shut it down," he declared. "All of it. The forge, the tunnels, everything. The only way to do that would be to collapse the entire underground complex," Sarah pointed out. "But with the quantum instabilities, it could take half the planet with it." "Better half a planet than all of reality," Elias responded grimly. He opened a channel to the Valeran citadel. "Emperor Vashi, we need to talk about sacrifices." As they began to formulate a desperate plan, none of them noticed the subtle changes already taking place. In the quantum warp spaces around a laser, shadows began to move with their own intelligence. The barrier between dimensions was growing thinner by the moment, and what waited on the other side was ancient, patient, and very, very hungry. The true battle for reality itself was about to begin, the price of tomorrow. The quantum void was speaking to Dr. Marcus Kane in voices that existed beyond normal human comprehension. His hybrid form, suspended in the heart of the quantum forge, pulsed with energies that threatened to tear reality apart. Through his enhanced senses, he could feel them coming, the joint human-Valeran strike team that thought they could stop what he had set in motion. "They don't understand," he communicated to the presence that had become his constant companion. "This isn't about destruction. It's about evolution." The presence, a vast intelligence from between realities, rippled with what might have been amusement. "They cannot comprehend. Their existence is limited to a single plane of reality. What we offer transcends such limitations." Above them, Captain Elias Vance led the desperate assault team through quantum-warped corridors. The strike force was an unprecedented combination, human marines equipped with experimental quantum shielding, fighting alongside Valeran biomancers whose silver armor pulsed with living light. The quantum fluctuations are getting stronger, Sarah Chen's voice crackled through their comms. She was coordinating from the Star Cutter, working with Arya to map the constantly shifting underground complex. Whatever Kane's planning, it's reaching critical mass. How long? Elias demanded, signaling his team to halt as another reality wave distorted the corridor ahead of them. Based on current readings, 20 minutes before the breach becomes self-sustaining. After that, nothing in this universe will be able to close it. Emperor Vashi, who had insisted on joining the mission despite their advisors' protests, raised their hand. The corridor ahead shimmered as Valeran biotech interfaced with the quantum distortions, temporarily stabilizing a path forward. The forge chamber is ahead, they announced, their inner eyes pulsing with strain. But what awaits us, it is unlike anything in our records. The chamber, when they finally reached it, defied description. It was a vast space that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The quantum forge at its center was a construct of impossible geometry, where matter and energy flowed in patterns that hurt to look at. And at its heart, suspended in a web of quantum energy, was what remained of Marcus Kane. "Ah, the cavalry arrives," Kane's voice resonated through multiple planes of existence. "Captain Vance, Emperor Vashi, welcome to the future." "This ends now, Kane," Elias raised his quantum rifle, though he knew conventional weapons would be useless against what the scientist had become. "End? This is only the beginning." Kane's form shifted, revealing glimpses of the vast intelligence that now shared his consciousness. The void between realities has watched us for eons. It saw the Valerans' attempt to impose order on a quantum universe, and humanity's embrace of chaos. We're not destroying reality, we're merging it with something greater. By unleashing horrors that consume entire worlds. Vashi's voice carried millennia of authority. By corrupting the very fabric of existence. The Ravagers were just the beginning, Kane explained, his voice taking on an almost evangelical fervor. They were designed to break down the barriers between realities, yes, but also to prove a point. The Valeran, with all their power, couldn't stop them. But humans? Humans found a way. That adaptability, that creativity, it's exactly what the void needs. The quantum forge pulsed, and reality rippled around them. Through gaps in space-time, they could see glimpses of other dimensions, other possibilities. And in those glimpses, something vast and ancient was stirring. "The void offers us transcendence," Kane continued. "A chance to evolve beyond the limitations of single-reality existence. Imagine consciousness spread across multiple dimensions, life that isn't bound by the laws of any one universe." "At what cost?" Sarah's voice cut through the comms. The readings we're getting, this process would devastate countless realities, destroy billions of lives. "A small price for infinity," Kane dismissed. "Besides, the process is already beyond stopping. The void is hungry after eons of watching. It will feed, and through that feeding, we will all be transformed." But even as he spoke, something unexpected was happening. The human gut bacteria weapon that had been used against the Ravagers was having an unforeseen effect on the quantum energies. The simple, chaotic nature of microbial life was creating patterns that even Kane hadn't predicted. "Captain," Arya's voice was urgent in their comms. "The bacterial infection, it's not just affecting the Ravagers. It's creating quantum interference patterns in the forge itself. The same chaos that makes human biology so effective against the Ravagers. Could disrupt the entire process," Sarah finished. "But we'd need a massive dose, delivered directly to the forge's core." Elias looked at his team, then at Emperor Vashi. The Valeran leader's inner eyes were already pulsing with understanding. "Our biotech," Vashi said, "combined with your bacterial weapon. A fusion of order and chaos. Like antibodies attacking an infection, Sarah agreed. But someone would have to. I'll do it, Elias stepped forward, but Vashi raised their hand. No, Captain. Your chaos, my order, together. The Valeran Emperor's form began to glow as they activated hidden protocols in their biotech armor. My people spent millennia trying to perfect life. Perhaps it's time we embraced a little imperfection. What happened next would be debated by both species for generations to come. Vashi's biotech armor, merged with concentrated doses of the bacterial weapon, became a quantum catalyst unlike anything either species had created before. As they charged toward the forge, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. No. Kane's form twisted as he realized what they were attempting. You don't understand what you're giving up. We understand perfectly. Vashi's voice was calm even as their form began to merge with the quantum energies. Sometimes the greatest evolution is knowing when to stop. The explosion that followed existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The quantum forge imploded, taking with it the breach between realities. Kane's hybrid form was torn apart as the void's presence was forced back into the spaces between universes. In the aftermath, as both fleets worked to stabilize what remained of a laser, humans and Valeran found themselves looking at each other with new understanding. The planet would recover, though it would never be the same. And perhaps that was the point. You know, Sarah said as they watched the combined fleet begin the restoration process, Kane was right about one thing. The combination of human chaos and Valeran order, it is something new. Something neither of us could have achieved alone. Emperor Vashi, who had somehow survived though forever changed by their experience, nodded in agreement. Their inner eyes now pulsed with colors that had never been seen before in their species. Perhaps, they said, that was the real evolution all along. As the sun rose over a laser's transformed surface, casting light on a world that was neither purely Valeran nor human, but something uniquely its own, both species knew that nothing would ever be quite the same again. The void between realities still waited, watching, but they would face that threat together, order and chaos in imperfect balance. And somewhere, in the quantum echoes that still rippled through spacetime, the story of how the mighty Valeran Empire had to ask humans for help became something more, a testament to the power of embracing change, even if it meant letting go of everything you thought you knew.